Hello, everybody. This is pharmacist Michael, and I am here today with Stacy, who is a trauma informed health coach. And I am going to let her explain what that is, what she does, and how she helps people.
So, what a trauma informed coach is somebody that works with clients, people that have experienced trauma. And what we focus on is the present, the here and the now. We don't have to go back and relive things or talk about things or recall in order to be present and move forward. Um, just with all the neuroscience and everything behind the latest studies, on how trauma, reliving and recalling for some people can re-traumatize them. So we can work alongside any mental health professionals or anything like that, or, you don't have to work alongside somebody, just as long as you're in a safe environment and things like that.
Okay, so if you have someone who comes in and they're a victim of some sort of trauma, do you even need to know what that trauma is? Do you even talk about it at all?
Someone can talk about it. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that, you can't talk about it, but what we focus on more is like what's showing up for you today and how it's showing up for you, and kind of let that person explore that a little bit and ask them some, powerful questions and get them to kind of I don't know how you want to say it, experience it, right? Like the full emotion.
Okay.
And then, and then I mean, you have to work a lot with like resourcing, and you can't just come in one session, I wouldn't say. And kind of, it does take, I know some trauma informed coaches might do it that way, might see people on like a here and now situation, but that's not how I would do it. I would bring them in and have them, look at their latest research and understand your ACEs score and see, the adverse childhood experiences, and get familiar with that kind of stuff. And then really work on grounding and resourcing and making sure that they have tools to regulate their nervous system before ever touching anything like that. Then kind of going over a little bit of the psychoeducation.
Okay.
And then more or less finding out what their triggers are, doing a body scan, seeing where they might be experiencing or holding on to emotions.
Okay, so what type of coping skills do you teach them? What would you start with?
A lot of people have their own answers inside of them on what
Oh,
that may look like. So I like to let people explore what works for them, because some people have trouble being present, right? Like every person's so unique and different that it's really interesting to see what works for some people that don't work for others, and where their nervous systems kind of are, to see what works best for them. So I really like doing the unique approach on what works for the people. A lot of people just need to have somebody to listen to them so that they can speak out their answers and really verbally process a lot of things as well. And so I can speak on what I like to do for resourcing and coping mechanisms is the that I could give, tools and things like that is, spending any time outside in nature. I love journaling. I love coloring. Um, I love being in water. Um, it's so incredible that it's the simplest things that we actually need to be present and in the moment to really experience what's going on.
What about music?
I love music as well. Yes. Yeah.
So, how do you determine? You said that the answer is within them. How do you, as a coach, determine what is going to work best for a particular person?
It's seeing what they're comfortable with, what their window of tolerance is. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of like that statement, but within our nervous system, like some people like to walk, right? Like outside, they might walk in outside while they call, and do it that way. And some people like to say sit on the ground with a fidget, like that's how up or down it could go. Um, and so it's just more or less what works for them to be present today for the session. And then just seeing what works for them to get them here and now, and then learning other coping mechanisms as they go. So seeing where somebody's at today and what can help them.
So, how do you know when you've succeeded in teaching them everything they need to know? I mean, is this an ongoing thing that lasts for months, or is it
Yeah, so I have a 10-week program right now.
okay?
Yes. And so the way I like to like say this is we're all different. We all have different needs in order to succeed. Because we all just learn this traditional type of learning. And
Right.
that learned for me. And I didn't learn that until way later in life. We're all made to go to school for so many hours a day and just sit there. And that's not for me. I would zone out completely and just daydream the whole time. And that was in the 90s, going to school where we didn't have a lot of this information today that we have. And so I think that the approach of looking at everyone individually and working with them is so important because there's so many different methods too, to what people hold. And I think that a lot of it is letting go of limiting beliefs about yourself and getting to those core wounds of childhood, the beliefs that, we were taught or whatnot by society, by our parents, by teachers, by other, you know, um, children that influenced our lives or older children, if they're siblings, there's just so many factors that build into who we are as a human and our whole experience. So I think it's interesting.
Okay, so you help people succeed in whatever they do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever it is that's holding them back to whatever it is that, they're looking to gain.
Okay, and do they have to be victims of trauma to work with you?
Not necessarily, no.
So do you go over like organizational skills and motivational skills and those types of things as well as coping
Um
mechanisms?
on like a group coaching that has like some similar things for more like life coaching, but for this it's more, I don't know how to word this other than it's my own belief. I mean, who is not a victim of trauma
Right. That's true.
at this point? Like, because trauma is not only what has happened to us, but what hasn't happened for us too,
Okay.
in a
Can you
sense.
explain that to the
Sure.
audience here?
Sure. So, you know, I'll speak for myself.
Okay.
growing up and watching the television, right? And seeing that, like, picture perfect family, like the Brady Bunch, right? Like the lady marries the man, and then like they have a housekeeper, and they have all these things, and like everything looks good. And then you're a child and you plan your whole life, as in that's what we're supposed to do, right? Is like plan for the future. Well, for me, it was really hard to plan for the future because when you live in survival mode, it's really hard to look at the future. So, um, you just think that your life's going to be so much more different than it really turns out to be because life's hard and there's challenges. And so it's really on building the resiliency to see what life is, see life for what it is.
Hi, Sarah. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. Stacy here. Okay, so I just had a question on the tip of my tongue and it was a good one, and now I can't remember what it is.
That's okay. And as society as a whole, I mean, just in my generation alone, I've been through 9/11. We've got collective traumas. You've got the pandemic, you've got 9/11. And that's just what I've been through. I mean, there's also transgenerational trauma, right? Like to now realize that the nervous system that you were in your mom's nervous system. So, like, what happened to her while she was pregnant? I mean, that's why you really don't need to recall, because when you go all the way down the line, we wouldn't know everything that's happened to everyone. It's just the way that our coping mechanisms and trauma responses show up today.
Okay, I remember my question, and I think this is an important one. And
Okay.
and I know you're going to have something to say about this. Do you think social media has made trauma worse?
um I think that it's very it's not black and white to see it. I think that it's helped and maybe made things worse. I think that it depends on what people are seeing, because when I hear that, I like to say that Google made a lot of people's symptoms worse and things too, right? Like, not,
Right.
you had to learn that not everything you read on the internet was correct, because that's been around for how long now? So, you had trusted sites now to know really what to listen for, and or what to read for and whatnot. And I think that social media is the same way, because I get that there's a lot of misinformation out there, but I think that there's a lot of helpful information out there as well. I see a lot of people say I've learned more on the internet than I've learned anywhere else, which I think is incredible. Um, so I think that it's what you're watching maybe on social media or what you're doing on social media that can be harmful or helpful.
Do you ever recommend your clients stop watching social media, stop watching TV, stop watching the news, anything like that?
No. Um, I really don't recommend a lot of things. I let them kind of figure out what is actually not serving me, right? Like finding out that answer, because to connect the new pathways in the brain is so powerful for people to find their own answers and not really give them to them. So letting them sit after processing and after speaking about where they're at and what they're going through, and mapping out things, and bringing some of the things to surface, it's incredible, because a lot of people start to see, wow, I need to stay off social media so much, I need to limit myself, more telling them what they should do, if that makes any sense. um it's more them finding out what's not working for them or what they should cut back on.
Okay, so if somebody, let's say somebody hires you and they have no motivation whatsoever, how do you figure out how do you get them to figure out what they need to do?
That's a good question. Um, it's incredible because just powerful questions, because everybody, like I said, would have that answer inside of them. And it's really figuring out when this behavior started, right? Because behaviors are all a sense of communication to us. Like when did this, when did you notice that you had no motivation, or what has motivated you in the past? That's a lot where we will go to the past, is to retrieve information they've learned, things that have helped them in the past. We'll go to the past for that kind of stuff, to see what it is that they could do to bring to the here and now that gave them motivation before. Um,
Okay.
and I will also say that if I ran into somebody that was, so I do questionnaire before working with anybody to make sure that there is that um motivation is there. If not, I would need to maybe refer them to somebody else in the trauma field, or like maybe explain to them that they may need medications or some sort, something else to kind of help them. Because I don't want to say that I believe that people don't need medications and things like that. Like, I know that there's a lot of controversy and stuff around that. Again, I think that there's not a one size fits all. So some things might work for other people, and some people might need those extra tools for help.
Right.
So I believe that, that's more on therapists and psychiatrists and things like that to deal with when you get somebody that might need a little bit more resources.
Sarah says to stop calling her out. Thanks, Sarah. Okay. Um, what's the hardest thing about your job? Hi, Kat.
The hardest thing for me right now is filming content, and putting that all together. So I'm using Barbies instead of myself. And so I've been like doing backdrops and things like that, because Barbie has come out with such a diverse line, and I love it, to show all the differences. They have Barbies with different hair colors, different skin colors, different disabilities and such. And I just think that that is so incredible and so unique. So I want to show a lot, like I have school, like a little school desk and things like that. So I want to show and make content for even schools, like, because I want to help more people than just what I can work with. So if I can give ideas and put ideas out there for, teachers or administrators or things like that to see. And so I think that that's been like the hardest part for me, is wanting to help too many people at once.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to work with you, how do they get a hold of you?
So I have, my email is open right now, and my website is a little under construction as I have to change a few things. But my website will be up, which is just my full name, stacywilkerson.com, or they can email me at succeedwithstacy at gmail
Succeed Stacy
at gmail.com.
at gmail.com. Okay. And who is your ideal person that you could help?
Anybody that wants to improve or change something in their life, or wants to learn to live more present
Okay.
and in the moment.
Okay. So you teach people not to dwell on the past, and you teach people not to waste their life waiting for the future, right? Kind of
Correct.
like there a lot of us spend all of our time trying to reach some sort of goal. And then when we reach that goal, we realize that it wasn't anywhere near as important as we thought it was going to be. And I know a lot of people think to themselves, if I just find the right relationship, if I just get the right job, if I have kids, if I get married, if any of these things happen to me, that it's going to fulfill me and I'm going to be fine forever. And then you get to that point and you realize that that's not what it's about.
You'll never find happiness outside of yourself and external things. It's internal.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, Sarah's got a question. Can you see the questions?
I think because you just pinned it. How do you handle difficult clients?
Right.
I haven't had anyone that was difficult, to be honest with you.
That's good.
Yeah. Um, I think that the questionnaire on I've had clients that I haven't worked with that, weren't just going to be a good fit. And I think that that's super important is the questions before getting started, right? Because I don't want to waste anyone's time and they don't want to waste their time, money, the things. So making sure that it's a good fit and that they're ready, is probably the best way to avoid running into something like that.
Okay, so would you work with somebody who, let's say, just went through a divorce and has never worked before? Let's say it's a female who was married and been married to the same person for 20 years, and now all of a sudden they have to work because they're divorced. Would you help somebody like that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, it would depend on what their goal is.
Well, what if their goal is just to be able to survive?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Because that I guess that's what different people come in for different goals. So, I mean, to some people might take longer than 10 weeks.
Right.
You may run into something like that as well. So it would just all depend, and then that would be up to that person. But say they go the 10 weeks and then they feel good, they feel that they have enough tools in their belt to just find a different like group setting or continue. And I have something set up where we can meet just once a month after that, just to continue to, maybe just check in instead of once a week. So there's different options, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Would you say that your services are more about being happy, being successful, both?
Um,
Because
I
you,
would
you
say
call yourself Success with Stacy, but I'm assuming that part of success is also happiness.
correct. And it's funny that words, how they mean something so different to somebody too.
Right.
So to me, it's just more, to succeed with whatever it is that, is holding you back. So that's where the way I look at it. Because what is stopping you from having happiness today? What's
Right.
stopping you from succeeding today? If that makes sense, all in the same category. Yeah.
I want to go back to the Barbies again,
Okay.
just for a second.
Okay.
So you use these Barbies for what reason again? You're trying to explain different things to people, how to do things? Hi,
Yeah.
Heidi.
So right now, what I've been filming is a classroom that has the teachers and the students at the desk, and just ways that schools can implement some trauma informed lens on how to handle certain situations. I know that some people, are still in the era of children are attention seeking instead of connection seeking.
Okay.
And I had a lot of trauma in school myself. And looking back now, to look back, they handled a lot of things that weren't correct. And a lot of those things are still showing up today in our society. And a lot of children, that's their safest place that they do have, that somebody that could be in their life can give them a little bit of resources to help them away from their families. Now, not speaking for all school systems, obviously, but, certain school systems and, things that they can implement to help these children to be more present. I mean, to me, in my belief, trauma is the thing that's disrupting this world. I
Right.
mean, sleep, it's so crazy that sleep is the number one thing that can cause a lot of these issues. And I that's just what I have right now working on, but I also have like some more content that is already wrote. I just have to film it, is on jobs, the way that jobs can be more supportive to people. I actually lost my job for 10 years while healing my own trauma. And so that was quite interesting. And I had FMLA and all the things, and still. So my company did really wrong
Right.
by allowing that. And again, if it wasn't for social media and knowing my laws and learning all this stuff, right, that like that's not allowed. But, a lot of people pass judgment off of their own perceptions and their own beliefs. And a lot of people are still stuck in this hustle culture that we need to work through whatever we're going through, and that things, that you have to live up to that. And it's wild to me because a lot of these beliefs are coming from when a man and a woman lived together and a woman stayed home to raise kids. And you've got
Right.
women today that are single, raising kids, working 40 hours a week, having no time whatsoever to learn to be processed, learn to stay present, process things, you know.
So, do you believe that part of the problem is that both parents have to work now and try to take care of themselves and their kids and everything else?
I think that it's a very high expectation that is placed on us for people that don't have a village, because it definitely takes a village.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a difficult question now.
Okay.
What's the number one thing the school system could do to provide a environment where there's less trauma for these kids?
I already know the answer.
Okay.
To provide a resource room, a resource and regulating room, which I will get into all of that with the content, but more or less, instead of detention, there needs to be a room for students to go that has different things, whether it's like a lava lamp and cooling lights to calm down, or whether it's to go in there and jump rope and burn off some energy. Because when we're stressed and the amygdala goes off and we're in fight or flight, our prefrontal cortex is shut off. We need to discharge some of that energy. And when you're telling a child to just sit down and listen or sit down and do their work, the way my son's school does it right now, for instance, he's in middle school and he only has gym one half of the year, and then the other half of the year they don't. So you see, they're not even doing the physical activity at all within the 7-hour window that they're at school. And I know you can't just send these children to the gym class if, you know, they need to do that or whatnot. But I just think that having a team, let me add to that. So I think that the teachers need help as well, because the teachers need to be able to regulate their emotions when they're getting stressed out, because their job is very hard. And I think that they need, you know, you have one counselor in a school or whatnot. Like, I think that there needs to be teams that can just go through training like I did and learn these things and then be there to help, and then them be in the room, because you know, you got the principal and the assistant principal that need to deal with the parents or deal with you know, meetings and things like that, and running more or less the admin of things. And then you have the teachers, but the teachers don't really get a break either. Like I said, I mean, when I think back to kindergarten, there was always a teacher and an aide,
Right.
you know, but then it's like after that, it's just all the teachers are kind of on their own.
Okay, Twinkie, we've got some more people in here now, and they have no idea what this is about. So I'm gonna explain it again. Stacy is a trauma informed coach. She works with people who want to be more successful, want to lead a happier life, and she teaches people to live in the moment instead of dwelling on the past or living for the future. I'm doing the best I can here, but she also helps schools provide a better environment for our kids so they don't end up with trauma. And what Stacy is saying, and I agree with her, is everybody experiences trauma. It's not just somebody who was abused as a kid.
But
It can be.
that's what
Go
we
ahead.
think too. Sorry, that's what we think too, right? Like, a lot of people have that belief that trauma has to be something so huge or so,
Right.
yeah. So I think that providing this education too to people, education is so important,
It is. Right.
because you don't know what you don't know.
And you said earlier, it's not just what has happened to us, but it's what hasn't happened to us. And that's why I brought up social media, because when we watch social media, what we're seeing is the best part of somebody's life. You know, we see these people they have filters, they look a certain way. They never show you, well, I shouldn't say never, but usually they only show you the positive parts of their lives. You'll see them in Italy and hanging out with all their friends and at rock concerts and all these things that are great. And if you're a person who can't afford to do some of those things, or you live where they're not available to you, you might feel like you're missing out on something,
Absolutely.
but it's kind of a lie because it's not the whole story. It's just a part of the story.
And I think learning that is so important, that everyone has their struggles.
Right.
And it is kind of hard to see when you're in that, when you're in that comparison
Yes.
of where I'm at versus where somebody else is at.
What age group do you think is the most prone to damage from trauma?
Well, research suggests that, you know, your attachment style forming from birth to 3 years old plays a lot. And I would believe that that is the most crucial years of a person's life. And I would also say childhood, that forms the most, it just sets the foundation for life, right? That, and you don't have a lot of tools. I always say that my parents gave me a shed and I had no tools in it.
Right.
And I had to find the blueprint. I had to go out and then find the blueprint. And then I've had to collect these tools. And some of the tools I didn't need, and some of the tools I had to find. And so I had fostered my nephew back in 2017. And that's when this whole real journey started, because I had to take classes through fostering to be able to adopt. And that was when I learned all about all of this, and learning about the developmental trauma and how your brain can develop where you could be 35, we'll say, at life experiences, but also your emotional level be a 2-year old because of not maturing. And so when I tell you that school really wasn't for me, but when I went to these classes, I was like, wow, I understood everything, and it just all connected and it all made sense, and it was it was pretty crazy.
Wow. So, I'm fascinated by this because I always tell people to learn coping skills before you need them. But what I'm hearing from you is you may have needed them before you could even talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you really wouldn't know that because when you're 0 to 3 years old, you don't have
You're,
any idea that you
you're
need these things. And then when you get older, most people don't realize that the trauma already happened to them. They can't remember it. So, how would you even know it was there?
Well, how does it show up for you today? Like, what is your attachment style? Are you a secure, attached person, or are you disorganized attachment, or are you an anxious attachment? Our relationships with our children, our significant others, really teach us a lot about ourselves. um Addictions show up in the same way. um
Right.
and it's still all a need outside of yourself.
That makes sense. It is, isn't it, Twinkie? I mean, this is right. This is the kind of thing that I like getting specialists on that understand stuff. I mean, I know the drug side of it and I know the disease states and all that, but and I specialize in psychiatry, so I know a lot about different things that happen. How does she bring this out? So she said by questioning people. I'm sure there's more to it than that.
So so if you think about it, we all have, I mean, I don't know how to word this because I've never really worded it this way, but we all have an internal dialogue, so to speak, that however it is that you connect with that, that has your hopes and your dreams and the things that you want out of life. And so when I say that the answers are more or less locked inside somebody, they know what's best for them and what they want. A lot of times it's just, how do I get there?
Right.
And so it's really building rapport, like building that trust, and having someone present to listen to you and to feel safe. We cannot do anything until there's safety.
Is it like in a therapeutic atmosphere, she says?
So it's over Zoom call, and um I don't really know
She
what.
wants to know how she can do this.
Just shoot me an email and we can do a call and just see. Like I said, to me it's more safety. I like how you asked the question, if a person was out of a divorce, I would need to know, like, let's go back to that question.
Okay.
Is she separated? Is she in her own space? Like, when I say safety, meaning that, like, I wouldn't work with somebody that if they were going through it, but living with the man, if the man was abusive or anything like that, because you would need to get out, of
Right.
this. And there are other resources and things for that. But so, as far as somebody that has that safety and stability in their life to just process things, then that would be, whether that's just verbally talking, that would be good. So, just asking them questions on where they're at and where they want to go and seeing if it's a fit.
Without giving any names or making anything obvious, because I'm sure you have HIPAA regulations just like we do. Do you have any success stories?
Yes. So I was working with a female that stayed at a job that she had contacted me, and we had went over things, and she told me where she was at and what she wanted to do. And when we talked, she said, like, I'll get back to you, like, I'm realizing what it's going to take and whatnot, but I'm going to get back to you. And she got back to me, and 6 months later, and she had been at a job that she was no longer wanting to be at and stayed way longer than she wanted to. And she knew that it was going to be a dead end, because where she was at was going to take her. She didn't want to start over, right? She didn't want to go to a new company and have to start at the bottom, because she had already been somewhere for 5 years and had her seniority and things like that build up. And so this is just my latest one. So she has relocated. She got the job. She's happy, and I'm just so proud that she was
Great.
able to work through the fear, more or less, and just stay present to, because I always say, my famous that I love to say is, when I think of balance, is a clown juggling on a basketball. Because you're supposed to plan for the future, but you can't live there, and you can't
Right.
get there. And you need to go to the past to learn what helped you in the past and to learn from the past, but you can't stay there either. So those balances between living in the future, or seeing the future and seeing the past, but also staying present, is so tricky.
And I think so many of us do stay in jobs that we don't like and that don't make us happy, because we're scared that if we leave, we're never going to find anything that's going to pay us as much money. Although I would argue that that really doesn't matter as much as being happy anyway. And the fear of failure, it's all, the pain has to get to a very high level before somebody will actually make that move.
Yeah. Well, and some people can make that move, and then the pain kind of set in too, that because you can get so excited to do it. Just say you get so excited to do it, and then again it's not meeting your expectation, but that's because your expectation was so, you got to realize that you are going to have to go through, there will be days that are harder than others. There will be
Right.
those things, but then long term it did work out, you know, however it's supposed to.
And if it doesn't, you can always find another job. Jobs are out there. They're plentiful now, especially.
Yes. Or always go back to and say you did rather than say you didn't.
Right. And then, another thing that I always tell people is regret is one of the worst things you can set yourself up for.
Right. So if you go and you try it and you come back and you realize that it wasn't for you, isn't that kind of better than saying, what if I would have?
Yes. I think it is a lot better.
Yeah. because you'd always live with that, what would my life have been, or what would my life have looked like?
Right.
Go back to having the questions with it, or the answers within yourself. You wouldn't really be questioning if you needed another job, if you didn't think that you needed another job, right? Like,
Right.
obviously there's that burning inside of you that knows that there's something else out there.
Yeah. So Twinkie says, I know how it was. Her husband had 3 or 4 jobs at the same time, and he's now driving a truck, so he doesn't have to do that anymore, but he knew he had to get out. But I remember the stress that they went through trying to cross that bridge. I mean, but I think it's worth it for a couple of reasons. One, even if the new job isn't what you think it is, you still have the experience of doing it, which makes it easier the next time.
And a lot of times it's just taking that one step right there.
Right.
That's the whole holding you back, or fear, that's stopping you from doing it.
Right. And the more you do something that you're scared to do, the less scary it becomes.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like live streaming. When I first did that, I started doing this, man. I was like, oh God, what do I look like? Are people making fun of me? And now I could just care less because I've done it so much that it becomes just part of your life. Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna start, once I get a lot of TikToks filmed and put up. I'll be starting to do some TikTok lives for some just Q&As, to.
You should, because this is the kind of stuff that people need to know, which is why I wanted you on here, because things like this are very, very important. And, people have lives that are less than ideal and they don't even know why. And they just think that they're dealt a bad hand. And maybe they are, but that doesn't mean you can't get over it and move past it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they might need somebody like you to help them
And
take the steps.
that's the side of social media I'm on, is more connection. So I
Right.
think that's maybe too why I don't see the other side of it. If I were maybe in my teen years, now I can't speak from the teen perspective, but I'm sure that social media today is very hard on teenagers
Oh,
that
yes, it
don't have
is.
that reality based mentality yet,
Right.
of not realizing that these are just clips of people's lives, or that they are filters and things like that, because I didn't grow up with that.
Well, and even what we did grow up with, though, I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but the movie stars didn't even use their own bodies in these movies, right?
Yeah.
They're
And that's
using body doubles who have perfect bodies, but it's not them.
with plastic surgeries too, and all of.
Exactly.
So that's another thing that Barbie, I guess they're having a movie come out too. I didn't even realize that they were doing that until I started telling a few of my friends that I was doing this, and then they sent me like this Barbie movie's coming out, and I'm like, what are the odds? Because the Barbie, the reason that I was so drawn to the Barbie was, one day I was out getting a gift and I saw this Barbie and it caught my eye because she looked nothing like the Barbie that I grew up with.
Right.
That's so incredible, and I give it to Barbie to do this, because again, that forming that image when you're a child, that these dolls are supposed to like have a represent you of some sort, yet none of us looked like them. They were all
Right.
just blonde haired and a plastic doll with this perfect shape. And now it's incredible. I mean, they have freckles, they have braids, they have, all of these things. And it's just different body shapes and sizes. And that's so important. And it's the imagination that I love to do this with the dolls because it's a way for me to use my imagination and how healthy that is. You know, I didn't really get the childhood that I should have had. So to do this now as an adult and really understand it is so much different than doing it when I was a child and it more or less being like my own scenarios of what I wished for.
Okay, so before you answer Twinkie's question, you just said that you didn't get the childhood you should have got.
Yes.
Is that part of your trauma coming out? I mean, is that really true? And the reason I'm asking you this is because when you say what you should have got, what's a definition of that and what do you base that on?
Yeah.
I'm not
No,
trying to.
no, that's a great question. And I'm impressed that you caught that because correct. So I still work actively in therapy and things myself. And so I had told my therapist how this is a way for, yes, me to process my traumas and things because of not having that childhood. So my dad was an addict and my mom was in and out of hospitals and was bipolar, and it took a long time for them to figure that out. So living with both of them, I had to take care of myself. So that gives me a way. So when I say, what did I play with Barbies? As a child, I did, but I don't really remember what I did with them or, you know what I'm trying to say? And so
Yes.
a way for me to do this with these dolls and be present while I do it and use my imagination healthy and stay present and um, use it for a good cause all in one. And making the backdrops and things that I've done too. Like it's been a lot of painting and things like that. So it's just very therapeutic for me. Very.
Okay, I'm going to ask you another question.
Okay.
If you would have grown up with the quote unquote childhood you should have had, would you be as good at what you are? Would you be as good doing what you do now as you are? Because what I'm going to tell you is I don't believe God makes mistakes.
I believe that too. And that was that I came to terms with that while so I did a lot of EMDR. And so that's intense. Um, it was very intense for me. It was very overwhelming. And so that I came um to the understanding of that it was meant for me to have the childhood that I had because I wouldn't be who I am today.
Right.
Right? So that's a way for me, like I said, to go back and play because play is so important. And I didn't really get that. And so this is a way for me to play and teach things for people that, really have a hard time and doing it in a way that serves me and serves them. Because a lot for me, and a lot of people are this way, we don't learn through just somebody talking, right? It's more the visual too. And
Right.
so using these dolls to show this story, like with the visual and the audio there, I think will really help a lot of people. I'm excited. I'm excited to start doing it and see how people like it and what they learn from it.
Do you feel like technology stunts emotional growth?
I don't know. Um, there's a lot of studies on things like that. I would say it depends who we're talking about, what type of technology. Again, how long they're doing it, what they're, on there doing.
I agree with you.
Technology has helped my emotional growth, I can say, but I can't speak for everyone.
Right.
Like, I love connecting. We're in way different time zones. And like you said, this wouldn't really happen without all this technology. So I think it's incredible. Where I went to get certified was through moving the human spirit. And that's where I got my certification on trauma informed coaching and all of that. And I had a girl in my class that was from Singapore, and it's just incredible that to be able to meet people and do all of the things. And I do know that there are things that can get people into trouble on technology and stuff too. So I think that that's just a dependable question, like depending on what we're talking about.
Right. Okay, Stacy. Thank you for coming on. Success with Stacy at gmail.com.
Succeed with Stacy at Gmail.
Succeed.
Yep.
Succeed with Stacy at gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay. I may even have to call you.
Yeah, I would love that.
I think this is fascinating, and I think the more tools you can get, like you said, in your shed, the better off you're going to be. And I think drugs are overused. Even as a pharmacist, I believe that for a long time. I think people sometimes they need somebody to listen to them. They need they need to learn different ways of existing,
Well, and you need to learn
and
about
they
your
need to learn to take care of themselves before they waste all of their energy taking care of other people.
yes. Well, and I think that learning about the nervous system is so important, knowing that that creates a sense of safety. And the way that your nervous system responds is a big communicator to you. And so I think that learning a lot of that is definitely powerful for a lot of people, because
Okay, then.
anxiety is normal. We're
Right.
supposed to feel anxious. It's when it disrupts your life and you live in those constant states.
Is there a cost? She says, I'm sure there is. This is what she does for a
There
for a
is,
job.
yeah, yes. But I'm working on because again, privilege to me is a big thing.
Right.
And so I wish I could do it all for free. I mean, that would just be the best thing. But like you said, yeah, I mean, to make a living. So I am working on like a scale, like a sliding scale, because what someone else can afford compared to what somebody else can afford isn't fair, because that is part of it. They say you have to invest in yourself,
Right.
but what does an investment mean to every different person? That's big.
Right.
So that's something that I want to always hold true to me, that no one should not be able to learn these things because of their own financial, because that's part of it. You got generational wealth and you got generational poverty.
The people that need your services the most are the ones that are least able to pay for it, is my guess.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's true with a lot of things. It's not just you.
Yep.
That's true with healthcare. It's true with psychology in general. It's true with a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're talking medicines without insurance. I mean, who can
Yep.
afford that kind of stuff?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. And those are basic needs for some people.
Yep.
Look at what water cost and a house cost.
I know it.
And yeah, it's so
And
insane.
I do my stuff for free, but I've got a job to fall back on, and I make a good living, so I can I can go on and I can talk to people, but that's just because I do it because it makes me happy. It's the thing that I thrive on.
Yes.
So, but I certainly don't expect everybody else to be able to do that because it takes a lot of time. But okay, Stacy.
Well, we're friends on TikTok, so we'll
Yes,
get on there and go live and continue the talk too.
we will do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was
And
nice.
I'll bring you back on if you're willing, because
Yeah,
again, I find this very
yeah, I'd be
I think it would be fun to get maybe some more little squares up here of people that could just actually communicate with you directly. I think that would be wonderful.
yeah.
I know Twinkie would be interested in doing it for sure.
I don't know how YouTube Live works. Are you able to do that? Are you able to?
I can have 10 people up here at a time. It's not YouTube though. I'm using a third party.
Oh,
It's
okay.
yeah. So I'm using StreamYard, which is another program. You might still need her, Kat, not just when you divorced. You might still need her. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we could definitely work something out like that and do that. I would love that. So,
Okay. Thank you, Stacy.
you're welcome. Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, you were wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, everyone. Be
Bye.
happy and healthy.
Bye, everyone.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.